this point, if we have any backing plates left to put on, now would be the time. It's now time to install our shroud. Shroud, okay, this one's got the pull cord on it. We need to pull this, and this is going to drop right down onto it. We need to make sure the wires go through the notch in the shroud so that they don't get pinched. And we need 4 shroud bolts to hold this down. If you had yours parked, hopefully you remember to pull them out beforehand. If not, I pull those out first. I have my cardboard here. I'll pull mine out. And just like with before, you want to get them all in and started. This particular hole is usually the most difficult one because there's there's the shroud, the heat shield to get the bolt through before it gets to the block. But I want to leave them all loose until I get them all in and start lined up and started. Torque spec on these is going to be 50 to 60 inch-pounds. They don't need a lot of torque just to hold the cover on. Definitely don't want to overdo it and strip them out at this point. I'm going to use a 6-inch extension so I can reach over the top of the shroud. So now my shroud's on. Up next, I need to route my wires here. Want this fabric part in my wires inside the clip and then underneath the gray hose here. Okay. Set this over here like that. And then it's going to be time to install the carburetor. So I'm going to take my nuts off. Set them off to the side. I have my black spacer, which should still be on there. Before I put on my carburetor, you need to make a trip over to the gasket board to get your carburetor gasket and heat shield. And this is going to go on this way. Let's see if I can tip this up so you guys can get a better angle here. Then we need our carburetor and carburetor cover. Now my hose broke on mine. Yours will probably still be attached. And so your carburetor is going to be wanting to kind of hang out in the cover just like this. Before I go ahead and slip this onto the studs, I do want to make sure I hook up my stop switch wires to the leads. The longer of the 2 leads is meant for the inner one, and we got to get them clipped on. You need to make sure that you feel the metal clip inside the wire clip onto the metal terminal of the stop switch. If it doesn't, you're not going to be able to shut off your engine. You may need to use a needle nose pliers. So all we do is we hold that with the needle nose gently, and then we can come in and insert it properly. Okay, so we got that. Then we're going to have the choke facing the outside of the cover like this. And then I'm going to line up my carburetor on the studs, followed by the carburetor cover onto the studs. Make sure that your hose comes through the opening for it. And now we can reinstall our 10mm nuts. And these are going to have a torque value of 80 inch-pounds. I'm going to change out to my 10mm. Set my torque wrench, or find 80 on my torque wrench. At this point, we can stand it up, and now we need to install our governor linkage here. Okay. We've got our governor lever here. We've got our throttle lever here. And we've got to free up our linkage and springs from here. I got my governor spring, set that off to the side for right now. I have my linkage, and then this skinny little spring which takes the slack out of the system. This side is going to go in the big hole on the governor lever. This side is going to go into the big hole on top of the carburetor throttle lever. And we're going to do this end first. So we put this in and we rotate it down into place. And then I bring it over to the hole here and I just pop it down into place. Okay, just a little bit of push is all it really needs. Then I'll come back to this side and I'll hook this spring in the other hole. And I'll come over to this end. I'll hook this end of the spring into the other hole. If you find you can't maneuver your fingertips in there, you can gently use a needle nose pliers to get it in there and started. You just want to be careful that you're not stretching or permanently deforming the spring. There. So that's in, and it should work like that. If it doesn't move easily and freely, call me so we can take a look at it together. If this nut on this governor lever was loosened during the disassembly procedure, after we hook up the spring is where you want to come find me and ask me to come over and help you set the static governor adjustment. To install the governor spring, I'm going to hook this into the bracket and rotate it around. And then I'm going to take a needle nose pliers and grab this end of the loop. And I'm going to hook it into the outermost hole on the governor lever. That's where most of yours are. This also highlights the importance of taking notes or pictures so that you remember which hole that went into, because the hole that you choose to put this back into will change how this governor reacts when you go to start the engine. Okay? Again, things should move freely and easily. I should have idle and wide open throttle out of the carburetor. My wires should be held out of place with this clip. Okay? And now you would be ready for an instructor checkpoint, which would be step number 28. Before we get started on step number 29, which is installing the fuel tank and connecting the fuel line to the fuel filter. This would also be a good point, if you haven't already, to install the heat shield that covers the cooling fins. It's going to go, that little tab's going to go underneath there. And this little tab is going to go right into that open cavity here. And then we got one little bolt in the back. Alright, so now the fuel tank. If you recall, we put the clip back on the line for safekeeping. It's now time to pull that off. This outer tube needs to go underneath this bracket here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up. I'm going to take my tube, I'm going to feed it underneath the bracket, just like so. And then I'm going to just kind of rest my gas tank in place, and I'm going to flip this around, turn it over so you have a better viewpoint momentarily. Before I do, I'm going to free up my bolts from my cardboard. And I'm going to take one bolt and I'm going to put it in the back side of the tank, just finger tight, just to hold it in place. Okay? So I've got that finger tight in place. I'm going to put this in a safe place. And I'm going to set this down so that you got a better shot of this. Now my tank is free to move about yet. And that's important because I have to get this bracket in here. This is going to go like this. So I'm going to pick this up while I can still move it. And I'm going to line things up. And then I've got to line everything up and put these two bolts in. This one's the easier one to do first. I'm going to leave it loose. Grab the other one. This is where an extension and a socket really work. If you find that your bolt falls out of your socket, little tip, grab a little piece of blue rag, set that over your socket, and take your bolt, stuff it into it. If you'd like, you can tear off the excess. Now, your bolt won't fall out for you. And we can fish this down. Again, we want to make sure it's lined up and started. Once it's started, we can snug up our bolts. We'll come back and we'll torque these to 60 inch-pounds. If you're lucky, this will still be in your, the paper towel will still be in your socket. If not, usually you can just blow it out of there. Before I flip this back or stand the engine back up and tighten up that back tank bolt, I'm going to cover the fuel filter here. I'll take my pliers. You can use needle nose, you can use regular ones. Whichever ones work better for you. I'm going to slide that on all the way. And then I'm going to take my hose and my filter. I'm going to push them together and try to wiggle them back and forth to get that hose to go all the way on. Okay. And then I'm going to take my pliers, open up my clamp, slide that to within 1/8 of an inch of the end of the hose. Like so. Now we can stand this guy back up. Snug up my third tank bolt. We'll make a socket change. Say 8mm. Set my torque wrench for 60 inch-pounds. And the next step is to install the muffler. So I probably have told you to plug your nuts back onto the studs. Time to take those off. Retrieve your muffler. The gasket hopefully is already in place. Set that down over the top and get them started. Remember, even though these ones are still simple and they're easily exposed, we always start all our fasteners by hand, always. And the torque spec on them is going to be 150 inch-pounds. So I'm going to change out my socket to a 13. Okay. At this point, we're looking at a fully assembled engine. We still have some more steps to do. You're ready for another checkpoint. After this, we're going to do a compression test, spark test, set the spark plug gap, and then we'll fill it with gas and oil. And that will be in the next video. Thanks for watching.